Hi everyone, Omar here, co-founder and CEO of Blitzit. I've got a very exclusive session with our good friend Yusuf, someone from our community, a Blitzit power user as well. Recently joined and is already a power user, but I'm really excited to learn more about him. We're going to have a little conversation. But recently he actually pushed out this really cool solution, customizing Blitzit's experience for those that need it to actually play around with sort of like the dimensions, and other kind of physical properties, which I'm really excited to learn more about. I've never been able to implement this myself, so this is something, a really cool community hack straight from Yusuf. So firstly, let's learn a little bit about Yusuf. So Yusuf, tell us more about yourself. What do you do in terms of like your day to day? Yeah, just be lovely to hear more.
Sure. So I'm Yusuf. I'm the co-founder of Omar Digitals with an S. So essentially, I'm a designer by trade, but I've done a lot of other stuffs. Like in my previous job, I was looking at operations, and that was interesting as a designer. And recently, I started my own thing. And whenever you start your business, you have to do like design, client management, as well as like outreach and getting those leads. So I started using Blitzit, and one of the things that I really like is the ever visible bar on the site. But the problem that I faced with that is like, I switch between apps a lot, and I like to have them as big as possible. So whenever I would maximize an app, it would get hidden behind the bar, and this is especially frustrating with something like Photoshop or Illustrator, which have all these tools on the side. So like I was talking to you, and I was trying to figure out if there's like something on the roadmap, and then I remember there's this automation app that I use, Keyboard Maestro, which allows you to manipulate any windows, any like window or any app that you have through a certain features, like certain parameters that you can add in there.
That's really cool. Can you repeat the name of the app, by the way?
Keyboard Maestro.
Keyboard Maestro. We're going to drop links in the description. It seems like a very great complementary system that you guys can look into. So yeah, it'd be awesome to actually see what that workflow looks like. Are you okay with sharing your screen and showing us how this works?
Oh, sure. Yes. So I'll also give you the macro for that. So you can upload that. We can share that with the community as well.
Okay, so here's the macro. And as you can see right now, it is detecting that these elements are currently true. So they are visible on the front Windows screen. So regardless of whether you have multiple monitors, it will just see if the app is available on the screen. When it detects that, then it does that. So right now I'll just disable it so we can see without the macro. So right now I have my website open. If I was to full screen it, make it fully white, it gets hidden behind this, right? So I would have to manually come in, resize this. Now, if I was to enable this macro, and you can say it says currently true because it detects that, I don't even have to take any action apart from just like, let's say open Safari, change this, and now it has automatically resized this. And I can open anything else. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the app is. Even like if I have Keyboard Maestro and I try to full screen it, it will detect that and it will automatically resize it. One more thing is I've set it up so it can work on both, whether you have the bar on the right side or the left side. So right now, if it's on the right side, I want to make sure that this yellow one is enabled. But if I was to move this to the left side, right, all I have to do is disable this action and right click on this and enable this action. And I'll just minimize this, make it visible again. And now it sees it's currently true. I make it full screen and it sees that and it will resize it automatically. So I can do this, make it full screen, and it resizes it automatically. All right, that's all.
No, that's really cool. I like the system. I'd like to quickly dig into that for a little bit. It looks very technical, the setup. Would you think that this is for anyone, or it's for like the technical technically sort of enabled people?
It does get a bit of getting used to just because it does feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I started using Keyboard Maestro like last week. So it's easy to.
How would you class yourself as someone in terms of, I mean, you seem like someone that's quite technically versed, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say like, if you have used any sort of like workflow tools where, you can add like this, if this, then that situation, it's similar to that. So like if you're used to automations, let's say using Zapier or make.com,
right?
Think of it similar to that, just on your MacBook.
Fantastic. And so far we've got an implementation here to purely based on like to just make your workflow more productive in terms of keeping your windows aligned, right?
Yeah.
In the future, do you see other use cases that can actually help your Blitzit's workflow in terms of what Keyboard Maestro offers other than resizing?
Yeah. So, so like one other thing that I'm thinking of implementing is, let's say whenever I start the Blitz mode, so you have that still to do and those icons popping up.
Yeah.
If Keyboard Maestro detects that, it would be automatically able to open a certain apps. So I can set it like, if it finds this image, open Photoshop Illustrator, because that's what I would be using most of the time.
Right.
As well as, I think that's like the simplest thing that I can think of. I was just making sure.
I love how it can actually detect. It can like really intelligently detect like a visual cue. I wonder how it's doing that. Is it purely based on like a pixel analysis, or it's like, is it actually, more than that? Is it data? It looks like it's just pure images, right?
Exactly. So if you have, like there are multiple variables that you can have. So for example, I just have like, this screen contains this image. Yeah. I would just look for that image. The other thing that it can do using an image is like click on it. So let's say if you want to automate a few clicks, you can do that. Another thing that I have is like, I download ebooks on my system, and I have an Amazon Kindle app installed. But for some reason, I don't have the right click send to Kindle thing on my system. So I've created where it will see that I've downloaded an EPUB.
Right.
It will move it to my Google Drive folder, and then it will also then within Finder click on like file share, click on like send to Kindle, and then take all the steps forward where it can input text fields, and then it can click on the send button. So like things that where you would anything repetitive that you do on your system, you can pretty much for sure automate that. Exactly.
That's really interesting. Have you ever heard of Raycast by any chance?
Oh yeah, I use Raycast with this as well. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. So someone from the community recently implemented like some hotkeys for Blitzit inside of Raycast. I can see that as a useful use case as well. Something that we hope to, obviously we'd love to like integrate Blitzit's ecosystem deeply into Raycast because they're a very thriving community, and you can see that as something that can also support their users. So we'll see, of course. So how long have you been using Raycast, by the way?
Raycast, I think it's been like a few years now.
Okay, and what's your use case there? What do you just shortcuts, I guess, right?
Yeah, pretty much just shortcuts. Like one of the things that I really like about Raycast recently is the auto quit timer. So I'll have like a few apps that I use frequently, but I don't need them to be running in the background. So you can toggle on Raycast and set like a timer. So like after I think it's like a few minutes, it will automatically quit the app if it's not being used. So it just keeps like the dock very clean. Because I have this thing where I want to just like minimize everything, any visual distraction on my screen. So that really helps. And then I have like, for bookmarks, I use Raindrop. So Raycast also has an extension for that. So regardless of whichever browser that I use, because I'm also switching browser very frequently, I can just like, I have a Control B shortcut. So regardless of whichever screen, whichever app I'm in, I just press Control B. I type in like the name of the bookmark that I want to open, press enter, and it will just open my default browser.
That's really cool. That's very smart actually for efficiency for sure. Yusuf, it's been really awesome talking to you. I guess like last question before we roll up the credits for this video. What do you have in mind? Like, what would you like to see in Blitzit specifically? If you had to pick three things that our team can focus on that can help improve your workflow, what would those three things be?
Oh, yeah. One is ClickUp integration. That's something that I've talked about. Like even before getting Blitzit, I was like, that would be huge.
Okay.
And the other one is, like, I'm not sure if this is worth it specifically for Blitzit because there are like a few other apps that exist for it, but it's just like having more of a focused mode.
Okay.
So, there's rescue time, I believe, where like, when you turn on focus mode, it will block distracting websites or apps and stuff
you
like
can
that.
set the parameters of what those websites are. So like something like Instagram and stuff like that could be cool. Yeah, we've had similar requests to that and something we definitely, I don't think it's the hardest to build, funny enough, but it's more like just the technical logic behind it. So I appreciate that. In terms of ClickUp, you were saying, sorry, was there any more other than that? Or was those two?
Oh, yeah, just the last one. It's more on the focus mode side. Is when you when you start focus mode, turn on focus mode within my macOS as well. So it hides all the notifications and stuff.
So the native focus mode also kind of gets enabled as you click focus mode. That'd be very interesting. It's more of a macOS thing that we have to then integrate to exclusively for the macOS app, but I'm pretty sure there should be some way of doing it. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, there's another app that I used. Again, like I use a lot of browsers. I've used a lot of to-do productivity apps.
Yeah.
I haven't really settled on one until like Blitzit sounds like a good one.
Yeah.
What they ended up doing was just creating a macOS shortcut. So like the native shortcuts app. So it would detect something. I'm not really sure I can share that shortcut with you. It would essentially detect like if the app has turned on focus mode, then turn on focus mode within macOS. So it will send a trigger to the shortcuts app. So that really reduced their work that they had to do to implement the focus mode.
That's very interesting. It does sound like a very smart system to implement. If if we can put that together, I think it'd be very valuable to users as well. I think it seems like it's something that we can definitely throw in the preferences section where people can actually choose with just more intentionally. But yeah, I just want to dive very quickly into like ClickUp. Specifically in one way of obviously integrating ClickUp, we've been talking about this. We integrated Notion recently, and there's still more work to be done on Notion, mind you. We just done like a basic one, and it actually fits my workflow. I'm a creator on social media, so I have a lot of like my content planning on Notion. And it works for me, but of course, there's lots of a big breadth of use case. I just want to figure out like what would be an MVP version of ClickUp for you? Is it just porting the tasks and then marking the statuses, updating the status on ClickUp, or is it more than that?
I would say just for the MVP version, just importing the tasks into Blitzit with the due dates. I wouldn't even worry about changing the status on ClickUp because that's something. There's an app that no longer exists. So they didn't really have a ClickUp integration, but they did have a GitHub integration, and ClickUp has a GitHub integration. Yeah. So I ended up setting the integration where like any task that was assigned to me would go into my private GitHub, and then it would get imported into the app. So that just allowed me to have somewhat of a streamlined workflow where there was a minimum number of apps that I was interacting with regularly. And when I'm done with the task, like at the end of the day, then I can go and click up and change the status manually.
Right. Okay.
I think like as a very, very, very MVP version, just import the tasks that are assigned to me.
Yeah. So important based on and also because you might be sharing boards with other people, you want it to specifically be assigned to you. So even tagging, selecting who would be important to you, right? Fantastic. We have that on Notion. We can select a person, and we can also assign statuses and map statuses. That's one way we do it. Or you can just loosely pull the task if you're not doing auto sync. Would you find like syncing back to ClickUp in terms of statuses would be valuable? So you mark something in Blitzit done, You mark it.
Yeah.
I think ClickUp has a status property as well, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And so we could do that too. I think that would be critical actually, right? Because you want that two-way sync to some degree.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that would be amazing to have if the status is sync. If it doesn't, I mean, just as like a very bare minimum, just to test it out and to see if like, people are vibing with it or not, just importing those tasks in. Because for me, if I don't see something visible, I will forget about it.
Exactly.
So just having the task, even if the status is not syncing or whatever, goes a long way for me.
Makes sense. All right, I'm going to keep that in mind. Yusuf, this conversation has been super valuable for me. I appreciate your time. Hopefully we see more of you and more of your innovations inside the community.
All right, well, take care.
Take care.
All right,
bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.